Uh, YouTube's. YouTube's. I just put in a few hours of work and I got the rest of the day to myself. It's a beautiful day. So, yeah, start a new work week tomorrow. Gotta get ready in a few hours, but I figure I'd take some time, put this out into the world. I've been getting uh, suggested a lot of this red pill content. And, I listen to it as I do with anything. I'm one of the very few people, I guess, that I know that will actively go out of their way to try and understand things that are contradictory or just completely irrelevant to what I truly feel or believe in my heart. And I don't know, it's called role reversal. I think that's the only way problems get solved in life, at least from my experience. The only way you will ever know what another party's feeling is you have to humble yourself to first accepting the fact that there is a problem, and you have to do your best with a sense of humility to understand where they're coming from. So in my particular instance, I've said it many times, my life really, I just look at it as like a big experiment. It keeps things fun, it keeps things fresh, and I don't walk into things with incredibly high expectations all the time. You get let down often that way. But it's like if I wanted to understand, where a Muslim was coming from, I'd do my best to be Muslim for, a month or a year and see. You know what I mean? That's the only way you're going to understand, and vice versa. If you're a Muslim, you want to understand where Christians are coming from or whatever. Become one. Do your best to become one for a while and sort of understand. Yeah, it's role reversal. Same thing with like boss and employee. Vice versa, employee to boss, or traditional families. The only way you're going to understand where your significant other is coming from is to put yourself in their position. It's called role reversal, and it solved a lot of problems in my life, personally. So, yeah, red pill content. It's kind of bugging me out because I have a very, very different view on traditional masculinity. And the beauty about having a free and open society is that I liken it to driving. When you're driving down the road, if you're on the highway, you can see the speeders, you can see the people who are weaving in and out of traffic, the aggressive ones. You can see who's being negligent and swerving in the lane. You can see who just chooses a lane and just rides it out. You know what I mean? You can see people who are obeying the law. You can see people who maybe are nervous behind the wheel. You know what I'm saying? They're going below the speed limit. It's like that's the beauty about a free and open society is like you can for through like voluntary compliance essentially. You can see who is in your lane, who is an active threat, and who essentially to like avoid or not to avoid. You give people the ability to showcase and display their true colors instead of as if it were, completely strictly, regulated. If everybody had to conform, every second of the day, every minute of the hour, it'd be very kind of hard until it was a little too late to actively identify, what type of personality an individual is. So with that being said, I think social media is kind of just like an information highway, and that's kind of how I view things. You know what I mean? It's like we should keep it that way. Not everybody was made to work at McDonald's. And some people, you know, they got to work at McDonald's for 5 to 10 years to figure out that it's not for them. It's like, are you gonna berate them for the rest of their life because they wasted 5 to 10 years at McDonald's. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the shit that we're dealing with nowadays. And it's very, it's very similar with male and female right now. I supposedly, I guess that's what the big hype is right now. I'll be completely honest. I've been single for quite some time, and it doesn't quite bother me as much, I think, as it should, or as other people think that it should. I mean, obviously, um, I don't know how to put it like as delicately as possible. You know, well, let's go back. Okay, like I said, I view things traditionally a completely different standpoint. It's like we're in 2025, soon to be 2026. Believe it or not, this year went by so fast. You know, and I have no kids. Um, I like being able to just do what I'm doing right now. A dog would not be, a pet would not be uh, a a comparable replacement for having, an intellectual connection, an intimate connection with somebody who really gets me. You know what I mean? And neither would like a short thrill. You know what I mean? Neither would like a one night stand. So like I don't know, maybe my views don't really add up with yours or whatever. But that doesn't mean you can't learn from me. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean you can't listen to what I'm saying and at least understand where I'm coming from. So, give me 1 second here. I'm trying to gather my thoughts. So the whole thing. Listen, I know on both sides. Okay, there are men and women who are just shitheads. If you take their anatomy, their genitalia out of the equation, and you just view them for the type of people that they are, you know, um, they're just shitty people. And to be completely honest, at one point in my life, so was I. I probably still am in some aspects. Depends on who you ask and who's judging. But yeah, I'm by no ways perfect. Um, I guess what I'm saying is, I mean, it's just the content is really just people doing it. It's really no different than like a political party. You know what I mean? You're just driving a bigger wedge between you know what I mean, between these two sexes or factions, or I mean, these two dynamic pieces of society. And I don't honestly, I don't think it does any good for anybody. You know, I understand, traditionally, the household, the woman, the female's roles, the male's roles, the whole like dude's got to approach first and lead the way and be masculine and all that shit. Like, yeah, I get that, you know what I mean? But we haven't lived like that in quite some time. And you know what I mean? It's kind of like Pandora's box. It's like, you let it out, and now I don't know. I kind of feel like everybody knows a gorilla can crack an egg. I kind of feel like there's a difference between dominion and dominance. And I don't know. I'd much rather have like dominion. Um, over dominance. Dominance to me is more like trying to shove a round peg through a square hole. And you could do it. You could definitely do it if you got enough. Ass behind it for sure. But dominion is more just like knowing that what is yours will come to you, and knowing that I mean, it might not even be perfect, but you know what I mean. It's far better than trying to like put everything in a box. You know what I mean. Essentially, it's something round that's in a box. No, no, I just find it incredibly, how do you say it, counterproductive. It's like 2025. Okay, uh, you know, this is. I mean, because there's you could just come at it from so many different angles. Okay, I guess let's just start because I'm a man. You know what I mean? Let's just start from like the traditional male, like, role. Okay, an example that I've struggled with most of my life. Okay, is men, especially men who are like older than me. I've seen grown men act more like women than women that I know. You know what I'm saying? It's like to me, like being able to have dominance over people, to be tyrannical, to be, abusive, whatever you feel you have to do, yell in somebody's face. You know what I mean? Like to me, those things are not displays of masculinity. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you're fucking Brock Lesnar and you could fucking bulldoze a house with your shoulder. You know what I mean? It's like if you don't have control over your emotions. You know what I mean? If you don't have the ability to like Humpty Dumpty, like you crack that egg, bro. You know what I mean? If you don't have the patience and the willpower and the steady hand to like at least be able to try and put it back together, it's like I don't really look at what you have as dominance. You know what I mean? As traditional masculinity. Like it is just it's yeah, I mean I hate to say like, what I mean, the whole, but it's irrelevant. It's kind of worthless. You know what I mean? It's like you could hit the gym, you could take steroids, but it's like there's nothing you could do to make your fucking eye any stronger. You know what I mean? It's like there's nothing that you can do to make, you know, a shot to your solar plexus, you know what I mean, any less fatal, or you know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? It's like, your jugular, you still bleed just like everybody else. So it's like, it's, just like I said, I've worked with people. I've had bosses follow me out into a parking lot and try and fist fight me. More than one on more than one occasion in my life. You know what I mean? Because like, just like some women. You know what I mean? Like you try to talk to them like a person. And they feel that they're above reproach, and they take it disrespectfully, and they automatically go to violence. And that's what I'm saying. It's like I don't find that to be traditionally masculine. You know what I mean? I really don't. I kind of like view you as like, maybe, I don't know, maybe you'd consider getting a sex change. To me, like, traditional masculinity is being calm. You know what I mean? Being having a sense of humor in like the worst or darkest of times, and still being able to, I guess, do a greater good without having any merit shown to you. You know what I mean? It's like, so what if somebody called your fucking mom a hoe? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, you called my mom a hoe, so I fucking, beat his head in with a fucking wrench. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, I suppose. But, you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't, like I said, I don't really I look at that as like you not being in control of yourself. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, maybe you beating his head in with a wrench is like you being in control of the situation, having dominance over the situation. And, or maybe not, you know what I mean? I guess time will tell, but I don't see it that way. Um, and cowardice, but anything that doesn't really like fit into it doesn't conform into this little club, of like these masculine people, you know what I mean? These so-called masculine dudes. Anything that they, you just take it for face value. It's like I was saying about role reversal before. It's like you never like actually follow through. But you know what I mean? Like there's been many, many times throughout history where like like cowardice, if you really if you honestly really think about it, you know, um if you just delved just a little bit deeper, what I mean? It's like they call it cowardice, so like you don't look into it any further. It's like, oh, that motherfucker's a coward. Oh, he's a coward. Should, don't want to associate with that guy. But like in reality, my gripe is I honestly feel that cowards may have more bravery attached to them than most people who say that they're brave. And like, hear me out. Like I said, it doesn't apply to every situation, but most classical examples of cowardice are in fact like defiant bravery. You know. So again, I mean, you have to understand. You have to put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's been called a coward. You know what I mean? And like, truth be told, like there is nothing more brave than to essentially be standing in front of an army of fucking ripped, fucking, what I mean, angry dudes and telling them to like go fuck themselves. You know what I mean? Like, I don't agree with what you're doing and I'm going my own way. You know what I mean? And then to have insults and it's almost like a hoe kind of. You know what I mean? To have like insults and to have the courage to understand that like, yo, I'm walking away from this situation. It's probably going to follow me throughout my entire life, and still doing your best, you know what I mean? I guess to carry on in a way that you feel is better with your own free will, you know what I mean, that essentially God has given you. You know, like I don't necessarily view that like just because somebody said someone's a coward or someone's a bitch. You know what I mean? I don't really necessarily like look at it as like, oh well, just because fucking he said it, you know what I mean? Oh, it's got to be true. You definitely don't want to associate with that guy. That guy's a fucking bitch and a coward. You know what I mean? And this stuff trickles down, um you know what I mean, down like the hierarchy. And it turns into like things where like the women in particular, okay? you know I I will say this, I grew up around a lot of women. All my cousins are women. um So I mean, like my only sibling is a female. So like in my house, I mean, I grew up with a lot of like emotions. I grew up with a lot of just women frequently entering and exiting my life and my house. Okay, there was just a lot of chicks, and I'm a very observant and quiet person. But I always noticed that like like women women are not as like weak and fragile as we they can be, but they're not like they're really not as weak and as fragile as as we as we perceive them to be at all. Like most women are looking for like the biggest, dumbest dude to send that will conform, that will be able to like wrap around their finger. And again, this is not just like a blanket statement about all women. You know what I mean? This is just what I've found to be the most consistent situation. You know what I mean? It's like that's why they choose men who are like fucked up in the head. You know what I mean? Or like somebody who like I said, they have these qualities. They have the strength. You know what I mean? Like they can protect. You know what I mean? And I guess what I mean, that just makes them feel like what is it, like a trauma bond? I don't know. But I find that they get themselves in these situations with these men, and I mean, it's what is the byproduct of sexual activity? It's me. It's people. It's us. It's little people. You know, and like those that's what ends up. That's what the next generation is essentially made of. Um. So yeah, they all right, when I was doing drugs, when I was like bare knuckle boxing in my teens in the backyard with my friends, like when I was just doing dumb, stupid shit, you know, like when I could have been at the taking a bus to work, you know what I mean? I still had a girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? And it's because I was open. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's more than one reason, but it was I was freer. I was easily manipulated. You know what I'm saying? It's like either that or you know what I mean. I think there's this thing called Mascow's hierarchy. I don't know if you ever look into it, but it's essentially, two pyramids, okay? And like as you mature, you know what I mean? Uh, like what I found is, I want a woman in my life more for like family aspects as opposed to like what I was doing when I was younger. But looking back on it in hindsight, like I am completely dumbfounded that like a woman would have actually found me attractive displaying those wretched qualities that I did display. You know what I mean? Like I was a thief. I was a fucking drug addict. I was angry, wrathful, and ungodly essentially. And I was commended. I was commended. I was loved for those attributes. And thankfully, I always had like the self discipline aspect. I've said it before in my videos. Like my whole family is essentially military, so I grew up around a lot of very stern faced men. It's not that they didn't have a sense of humor. You know what I mean? It's just you know. Uh, you got to have your priorities straight. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I've always noticed that. Like, men do. We wear a stern face way better than the fair sex. You know what I mean? Like women, they're just better when they're happy. You know what I mean? When they're clean, you know, when they're the opposite of us. Men are supposed to be like grizzly. Their hands are supposed to be fucked up. You know what I mean? They're supposed to have like that fucking that that very what's the word, that face, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to say angry, but yeah. So like I was saying before, not everybody was made to work at McDonald's. And now that we're in 2025, and there's like all this red pill content, and there's like women who can make money essentially off of just being born beautiful, and like they could just make money underneath the shade of a tree by like taking pictures, like whatever, yo. You know what I mean? That's her lane. She chose it. You know what I mean? And in 5 or 10 years, if she chooses not to fucking be in that lane, I mean, like that is just the same respect and dignity that you could give. Just like I said, if you take the genitals out of the equation, that's just human being. You know what I mean? Like just you don't gotta call the fucking dude who ends up dating her a fucking, a fucking simp, fucking bitch, fucking beta cuck mother. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck, bro. like, yo, like, who the fuck do you think you are? There are 8 billion people in the world. You know what I mean? You mean to tell me that the person you meet is like the only? You know what I mean? That's it. You are the center of the universe, and vice versa. I mean, it's romantic to think. I mean, I wouldn't mind if that happened to me, but like, what's the likelihood of that? I mean, be honest with yourself. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, you're gonna sit there and call somebody narcissistic and fucking self-centered, and you're gonna sit there and say that like, like, look, if there's kids involved, it's a whole different story. You know what I mean? Like, I truthfully believe, like, once you have kids with somebody, like, it don't even matter if that's not the person you're supposed to be with. It's not about you anymore. You know what I mean? You went in there thinking you were just like clapping the cheeks or, whatever. I don't, you know what I mean? And you got a kid. Like, no, like your purpose in life is now doing the best with what you have to make the next generation better than you and your fucking significant other. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That's just me. You know what I mean? I don't really, yeah. Like I said, I don't really get down like that anymore. Uh, so yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like, like your job in life is not to just like berate a woman. At least not in America, not in 2025. To just like fucking tell her how much of a worthless piece of shit is because that's the life that she chose. You know what I mean? In my opinion, you know what I mean? I know that's gonna like not sit well or not resonate well with some people, but it's like, it's like, again, we all got a lane we could choose. There's an open highway. We're all fucking flying down that. You know what I mean? Down that shit. And you know what I mean? It's like, if she wants to fucking get off in that exit, let her go. You know what I mean? Maybe she'll be back in like 5 or 10 years. I don't know, but like to think that to think that's the only way to live after you already let it out the box. You know what I mean? It's just, that's, I don't know, that's crazy. That's asinine. Like, and again, like, I'm not disagreeing with anybody who believes that way. You know, I'm not at all. Like, there are definitely, I forgot what quote it is, but there's definitely two types of freedom. There's a freedom where people can do as they please, and sometimes it's relevant. But most of the time it's better that you do what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean? It really is. It's better for everybody. It's better for you. It's better for the people who are closest to you. It's better for just the whole makeup. Everything. You should be doing what you're supposed to be doing. But it's okay to let loose every once in a while. Um. Yeah, yeah. Okay. And the element. Uh. Women have been in this predicament. Okay. Specifically, women have been in this situation for, whatever, a few hundred years, probably way longer than that. You know what I mean? Thousands of years, let's just say. They have been essentially attracted to people who showcase like really shit qualities. You know what I mean? Fucking, the big ones, the little ones, the long ones, the short ones, the fucking, the fat ones, the skinny ones. I mean, like, it's kind of the same from both sexes. Looking, angles. If you do the hokey pokey, but you know what I mean? Well, I guess what I'm saying is their brains, their brains are wired, at this point to operate on. Oh, fuck. What I'm trying to say is, all right, a woman's greatest weapon is the element of surprise, deception, essentially. You know what I mean? Like, because most of the time they cannot. You know what I mean? They're not stronger than the gorilla. You know what I mean? It's like they're forced to choose the lesser of two evils. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I could fucking, go this one way, and then, what I'm saying, like, maybe it won't be as safe as if I just stayed with somebody who doesn't necessarily treat me or get me the way that I want to be treated or got. You know what I mean? So it's like they develop this layer of deception, like, that they've. I mean, it's actually kind of amazing how how it works. But yeah, a woman's greatest weapon, you know what I mean, is deception. You know what I mean? It's like she could. It's it's crazy. It's like they want you close when you're far, and far when you're close. You know what I mean? It's like they'll tell you one thing but mean something else. And honestly, I guess what I'm saying is I'm really just I'm looking for like a better class of women. You know what I mean? Of people in general, but like women in particular. Because like I said, I don't really look at it as like men versus women or like evil versus good. I look at things as either productive or destructive. And it's like I said, if you just lay it on the table for what it is, and you take your dick out of the equation, you know I find, like, just for the greater good of humanity, period. Now that we're at this stage, it's like, why wouldn't you want women to just have an experimental life? You know what I mean? And it's like, who's to say that like fucking 50% of them won't actually still, you get what I'm saying? Like, why doesn't anybody fucking understand that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is it about what is it about that upsets us so, to the point that we gotta like make countless hours of content about it on the internet, and we need to, I mean, we need to treat people with such, disrespect. It's like, nah, I think, on both sides, you guys are just hurt. You know what I mean? The way I look at it is like, I I already had the best years of my life. I had the best pussy. The women that I was with, I had them when they were young. You know, it was mutual. Like, I could still, I wasn't completely wrapped up with all the obligations that I need to be wrapped in order to be a functioning member of society. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I could just like smoke a joint with my girl, and you know what I mean? We'd be on like another level. Like, it was good in those aspects. But like, it's I don't expect it to be any better. I really don't, ever. You know what I mean? And most of the people that I talk to, that are like older than me, you know what I mean? They're all pissed off. You know what I mean? Like, they got kids. Like, you know what I mean? Some of them tried the traditional route. Some of them, you know what I mean, fucking got like more kids with more than one person, been through a few divorces. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't get any better. And you know what I mean? It's like, you sitting on the internet, fucking calling each other out is not fucking helping the situation. You know what I mean? Just like, that's retarded. I'm sorry. It really is. It's kind of a shitty way to get through life. You know what I mean? So, yeah, like I said, I don't particularly agree with the traditional, like, I don't know, I'm 155 pounds soaking wet. I've been the same weight since I was like fucking in high school. You know what I mean? But yeah, like I said, it don't matter if you're Superman. There's kryptonite out there. You know what I mean? Like, you don't gotta be so concerned about your masculinity and your dominance and like, who the fuck notices you when you walk in the fucking room. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like, listen, bro. It's like, bro, they shot JFK in the fucking head. I think Nas said that in one of his tracks. It's like, you're not God. You're not God's gift to Earth. There are 8 billion people walking amongst you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. You know what I mean? It's getting to the point where, like, yeah. I don't. So I guess what I'm trying to say is just, I'm sick and tired of that shit. Not like it matters, what my opinion is, but I think you should definitely kind of recalibrate and like focus on like, you know, um, I don't know. Like I said, role reversal. I guess is like the main, the main point of this little chat that I'm having. Role reversal is very important, and I guess I just really I hope that I find somebody, and we can lead by example maybe one day together. You know, but I'm not holding my breath for it. I think, like I said, I'm not really concerned about you know showing my bright feathers, and it's going to be really hard, like I said, to attract somebody traditionally. You know, it's going to have to be on the sense that like I said, you know what I mean, she uses her 2025, you know what I mean, out the Pandora's box, grown up girl mentality, and I guess meets me at a as a as more of like a respectful, kind of like middle of the playing field human being type shit. But yeah, that's one thing that just kind of like disgusts me about the modern courtship. You know what I mean? It's just like we have like all of these weird things that are way different than most of history and most of societies, that are on the earth, and we're not doing the best. I'm sorry, we're just not. But I mean, for like the levels that we're willing to stoop to, when there are just much more important and higher things at stake. I mean, it's just like I said, dominion. Dominion is way more important than just old fashioned fucking low level fucking dominance, my dudes. You know, fucking get your shit together and remain calm. It doesn't change the size of your dick. It doesn't change how much fuck. I mean, it really don't change nothing. Um, yeah, just try to, I mean, just try to understand things from a perspective that's not just, I mean, your little four brick walls that you put around, and yeah, don't let words, don't let other people's situations, I guess, get the best of you. Uh, God be with you.